Uber, American company that provides services related to mobility. The business's signature product is an application for smartphones that allows users to request transportation from drivers of privately owned vehicles. In addition to connecting passengers with drivers, Uber's computer algorithm sets the fares for their trips based on distance and supply and demand. In return, Uber receives a commission from each booking. Since its founding in 2009, Uber has grown from a startup that operated exclusively in San Francisco into a global company. It has expanded its services to include food delivery, package delivery, freight transportation, and more. However, Uber is banned in several countries because the effects of the company on its markets have been controversial. Critics charge that its disruption of the taxicab business has resulted in the impoverishment of that trade's drivers and that working for Uber instead is financially untenable. The company, originally named Uber Cab, was the product of a brainstorming session between entrepreneurs Garrett Camp and Travis Kalanick in 2008. Camp first conceived of the business as a full black car service company for professionals that could be engaged through a smartphone application, but Kalanick was reluctant about the idea of owning cars and garages. He agreed to partner with Camp only once the ride-hailing app became the sole focus of the new venture. Uber would obtain its cars and drivers instead by offering free iPhones with the Uber application pre-installed to professional drivers for black car and limousine services, which found the idea of filling their drivers' downtime with Uber cab fares appealing. Camp and Kalanick found Uber's first full-time CEO, Ryan Graves, via a post on Twitter. Kalanick consequently took over the post in December 2010, moving Graves to the role of General Manager and Senior Vice President of Global Operations. After demonstrating its service at an app showcase in San Francisco known as the SF App Show, Uber began offering rides in that city in 2010. Though the rides were approximately 1.5 times more expensive than a cab at the time, Uber quickly gained popularity for its convenience of hailing a ride through a smartphone. Uber then rapidly expanded into other major U.S. markets, and, by the end of 2012, the company had started offering services in international hubs such as Paris, London, and Amsterdam. In 2012 Uber faced significant competition from Lyft Incorporated, a transportation technology company with a similar application that offered a low-cost alternative to Uber's black cars and limousines. With Lyft, users could obtain rides from anyone willing to offer the use of their personal vehicles. In July 2012, in order to expand the company's customer base, Uber introduced UberX, which allowed owners of hybrid cars, such as the Toyota Prius, to offer rides at a reduced fare, and owners of SUVs, such as the Cadillac Escalade, to offer rides to larger groups. Eventually anyone with a personal vehicle would be allowed to become a driver for the company. UberX soon became the company's most popular service. Additional investment from venture capital firms allowed Uber to continue pursuing rapid growth. Uber added more employees who oversaw the introduction of new services from 2014 to 2015, such as a carpooling option, Uberpool, and a food delivery service, Uber Eats. The company also expanded to additional markets, most notably China, after it raised a $1.2 billion investment. In July 2015, Uber became the most valuable startup backed by venture capitalists, valued at $51 billion. In 2016, Uber accepted a rare defeat at the time, selling off its unsuccessful Chinese branch to its main competitor, Didi Chuxing, a Chinese mobile transportation company. Some investors still believed the company's best days remained ahead of it, as Uber received an additional $3.5 billion in investment funds that year, but 2017 proved disastrous for the company. The trouble began in December 2016 when Kalanick accepted a seat on President-elect Donald Trump's Economic Advisory Council. A backlash ensued against Uber among customers angered by Trump's recent win. Then in January 2017, Uber's announcement of its temporary suspension of surge pricing during nationwide protests that included a strike by taxi drivers in New York City against Trump's new immigration policy was interpreted by many as an opportunistic attempt to profit off the taxi drivers' strike. The hashtag delete Uber swiftly began trending on social media. Though Uber put out a statement that the suspension of surge pricing was an attempt to keep down the price of a ride during times of high demand, it ultimately led to more than 500,000 deletions of the application from customers' phones. Following this boycott, Kalanick announced his resignation from the Economic Advisory Council on February 2, 2017. On February 19, former employee Susan Fowler published a blog post alleging that Uber had a dysfunctional and sexist workplace culture. Fowler's blog post became highly publicized, which prompted Kalanick to hire former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder to conduct an internal investigation into the company's culture. The investigation resulted in the firing of 20 staff members, and 47 recommendations were made to improve the workplace culture. On March 3, 2017, the New York Times added to the company's public relations problems by revealing the existence of Greyball, a program Uber had been using to track code enforcement officials so that its drivers could avoid them. And, later that month, one of Uber's self-driving car tests resulted in an accident with another car, which led to a temporary suspension of the company's autonomous car testing. All of these controversies and others contributed to the already negative public image of Kalanick. Following criticism from Uber's shareholders, he stepped down as CEO on June 20, 2017, and was replaced in August by Dara Khosrowshahi, the former CEO of Expedia Incorporated. Khosrowshahi began working to improve the company's image and finances, including taking Uber public with an initial public offering, IPO, in May 2019. Despite high expectations, Uber's stock price opened $3 beneath its initial pricing target, the worst opening for an American company since 1975. In part to address shareholders' concern about the company's financial loss stemming from the disappointing IPO, Khosrowshahi laid off more than 1,000 staff members. Despite the company's controversies and turbulent IPO, Uber remained one of the largest transportation technology companies and a fixture of the transportation sector. Uber took initiatives to expand its services by completing several high-profile acquisitions of companies, including food delivery service Postmates and alcohol delivery service Dre Isley in 2020 and 2021, respectively. It also continued to make bold decisions. In September 2022, Uber announced that all of its vehicles and drivers' vehicles would be electrically charged by 2030 and that it would be 100% carbon neutral by 2040. Uber has three operating and reportable segments: mobility, comprised of its ride-hailing business; delivery, its food, grocery, and other small item delivery service; and freight, its freight shipping business. Uber provides a breakdown of revenue and adjusted EBITDA for each of these three segments. Uber's mobility segment connects users with many different transportation vehicles, including ride-sharing, cars-hairing, micro-mobility, rentals, public transit, taxis, and more. Uber's delivery segment provides a platform for consumers to search for food and local commerce, including restaurants, groceries, alcohol, convenience store items, and other select goods. Uber's freight segment provides a platform that connects carriers with shippers. It offers carriers upfront and transparent pricing as well as the ability to book a shipment. The segment also includes transportation management and other logistics services. Uber hailed in the ride-sharing business when it launched, transforming the taxi industry and how people get around. It also inspired many similar types of businesses. The company has expanded its offering since its early days, providing more than just mobility services. Its delivery and freight businesses also bring in significant amounts of revenue. Uber's famous surge pricing revises the cost of its rides from hour to hour based on local demand. As more calls are made, prices tick up, drawing more drivers out to score customers. As demand subsides, prices tick down. Key takeaways: ride-sharing services like Uber have disrupted the taxi and limo industry. Uber has become a prime example of the gig economy at work. Uber's advantages include door-to-door convenience, safety, and reliable quality. Uber's disadvantages include its surge pricing and the negative effects of replacing steady jobs with gig work. Uber advantages: convenient and cashless. Instead of chasing down a taxi on a street or calling and waiting for a car service, e-hail app users can hail a car from any location and have it arrive in minutes. Uber doesn't even need to ask you for an address. It knows where you are. Because the passenger's credit card is linked to the e-hail account, no cash changes hands. At the destination, the driver stops the car, and the passenger gets out and walks away. A receipt is sent via email, with links to options for rating and tipping the driver. Professional service. Uber drivers use their own cars, and they seem incentivized to keep them clean and well maintained. The cheapest options are late model compacts, not older cars. The riders input their destinations into the app, and the drivers use navigational software to get there. Wrong turns are unlikely. The drivers are generally polite and well-spoken. They never refuse to take you to any particular destination. They don't even know your destination before they accept your call. Unprofessional drivers are weeded out because passengers get to rate the driver's performance. A consistently low rating will force a driver out of Uber. Competitive pricing. It is impossible to come up with a definitive or average price for an Uber. Its pricing scheme varies with every city, and that surge pricing model changes the prices constantly based on demand. Point 1. That said, Uber is usually cheaper for longer trips where you're moving at a quicker speed, while taxis are likely cheaper in congested cities like New York. That's because taxis charge per mile when moving, but per minute when they're idling. Uber charges per mile and minute, regardless of whether the car is moving or idling, with a few exceptions. Keep in mind that the surge pricing model can mean much higher prices at busy times of the day. But if you are heading to an airport, Uber is almost always a less expensive choice than a cab, especially for airports that are located farther outside a city. Point 2. Uber can be less expensive than a taxi or car service, but not consistently. One point in its favor, though, is that Uber tells you exactly what the prices will be for the options available at that time before you confirm the trip. Fast fact: with cheap prices and readily available cars, customers sometimes get into the habit of taking a car for very short distances. The costs can add up quickly. Safety and flexibility for drivers. Safety is an important advantage for drivers working with Uber and other e-hail services. The riders using the service have registered their identities and their credit card numbers on the app. They are not random strangers on the street. Because the transaction is cashless, a driver doesn't risk unpaid fares or need to carry cash for change. Rude, aggressive, and disruptive passengers are weeded out because drivers rate their customers. Consistently low ratings or reports of unsafe behavior toward drivers can cause an account to be deactivated. Point 3. Unlike yellow cab taxi drivers who work 12-hour shifts or car drivers who are scheduled by dispatchers, Uber drivers enjoy considerable freedom and flexibility. Drivers log in and out of the system anytime they choose and pick their own hours. Point 4. Drivers avoid expensive taxi rental leases by using their own vehicles. They also pay their own fuel and maintenance costs. All else being equal, this may mean more profit for drivers. Drivers are also spared any office politics because the app renders dispatchers irrelevant. Uber disadvantages. Controversial labor practices for drivers. Uber has become a prime example of the gig economy at work. In most states, drivers are not guaranteed a minimum wage. They have to supply and maintain their own vehicles and have few, if any, benefits. Some Uber drivers say they struggle to earn even a minimum wage once Uber takes its cut. However, that has changed in many other cities and states where Uber operates. In 2022, Washington passed the first statewide legislation that mandated minimum rideshare driver pay and benefits that include unemployment insurance and paid family and medical leave. Point 5. And in November 2023, New York State Attorney General Letitia James announced settlements with Lyft and Uber for $328 million in back pay for drivers as well as new benefits, including sick pay, a minimum wage of $26 per hour, earnings statements, and more. 6. In 2024, Massachusetts set the minimum wage for ride-hailing drivers at $33.48, which is effective only when drivers are transporting someone or traveling to pick them up, not when they are idle. The wage is designed to compensate drivers for any downtime between rides. Minnesota also began requiring a minimum wage, per mile and per minute, for drivers in 2024.78. Surge pricing. Surge pricing for Uber is controversial among customers. It's a classic use of the free market principle of raising or lowering prices according to supply and demand. For Uber customers, this means how many cars are available, supply, and how many passengers want to ride in them, demand. Compared to a straightforward surcharge, this automated system can lead to quite dramatic differences in pricing between any 2 points. At super peak times, the price could double or triple. That can mean a hefty expense during rush hour or during a snowstorm. Safety concerns have emerged in some cities and states where the transportation industry regulations are lax, and it's easy to enter the e-hail network as a service provider. Although this has a positive effect by increasing the supply of drivers, these drivers might not be as motivated to reach high standards of professionalism and safety. Negative impact of price competition. Price competition can be destructive for any industry. Increasingly, Uber, Lyft, and other e-hail services are engaged in an intense battle to provide the cheapest service. They are directly competing with each other and traditional taxi and car services for both customers and drivers. With competition from other ride-sharing services and the continuous hiring of new drivers, average earnings are being pushed downward. This means that drivers have to work longer hours to earn an income comparable to what they would have previously earned. Increasing competition and lower wages have led to a precipitous drop in earnings for taxi drivers, too. How much does Uber charge for a ride? It depends on where you are and the conditions at the time of your ride. If there is an increase in demand for rides, prices will increase. A decrease in demand will decrease prices. Is Uber free for seniors? Uber does not offer discounted rides for seniors, but there might be programs in your area that can assist with the costs. How do I call an Uber? You can use the mobile app or website anytime to schedule an Uber or call 1-833 use Uber between 4 a.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Operating in 15,000 cities worldwide, in more than 70 countries, and with 171 million monthly active users as of 2025, Uber is one of the most popular rideshare platforms in the world. 9. Uber offers riders the convenience of an easy-to-use app, safety, and reliable quality. For drivers, it provides flexibility and a range of perks, like immediate payouts, the right to keep 100% of tips, and simple driver requirements. However, stiff competition in the sector, effects of replacing steady jobs with gig work, and the unpredictable prices and regulatory environment pose challenges that Uber continues to face. Thank you for watching this video.